Hey everybody, welcome to Sketch Zone After Dark. Because here in the States it's almost tomorrow, and our guest, oh, by the way, I'm Carlos. Our guest is visiting from Germany. And that, my friends, our guest is Tobi Trebeljahr.
Nice. You chose the classic pronunciation.
I was waiting for the claps. Hang on.
Did they not go?
No.
Ah, brutal.
Well, yeah, hello.
They're normally there,
guys.
Yeah, we didn't sound test those.
Yeah, no, we always sound test them. Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Tobi.
Welcome.
There we go.
Yay!
Hey.
There's just a sleepy audience.
Yeah. The thing is, we have a bit of a time delay going on. So for me, it's like 7 a.m, which is not an hour that I'm usually up. I would say, like a freelance guy. But here it's a big mug. Second one.
Thank you for taking it for the team. Speaking of team, we got Jack Kasperzak.
Hello again. We are here. No clap. Not for me.
You probably don't hear, but there's a clap happening.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome. Nice to see everyone is safe from the coronavirus.
Yeah, hasn't come around too much here yet. You can still buy things in the supermarkets, which is nice. But yeah, let's see how this develops.
It's because Germany knows how to run a country. So.
Look at he's like, yeah, okay.
It's that's it's hard to say, right? Like how this shakes out and how the government will react, because it's like never and never before seen case almost. So we can only hope that like our respective governments does things that are like sensible, basically, and not screw it up.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah,
well, it is indeed affecting the arts industry. I don't know how many y'all have heard, but Disneyland is closed.
Dun.
Quite a few of the studios have closed or done voluntary work from home. I know Warner Brothers and Sony and DreamWorks and I believe Netflix, actually. So it's rippling through. I've heard quite a few productions are delayed too. A lot of the film shoots are being delayed. Some shows are just straight up canceled. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the biggest thing for us was actually the FMX in Stuttgart for this year. Was also just last week announced that they are canceling it, which especially sucks for like me and Carol, my partner in crime, because our graduation film was supposed to pose as a trailer for the FMX this year.
Oh,
and
geez.
we were supposed to get a bunch of publicity out of it, and it's like, we kind of worked for 3 years on this now at this point, maybe even a little bit more. It's a super oddball thing, and we never expected it to get any traction, basically. But our head of school, who Andreas Ukade, big shout outs, who's responsible for like planning the FMX, because it's like part of our school's organization structure. He picked it out, and it was like, yeah, cool, let's make it a trailer, I guess. And I mean, now obviously it's canceled, which is like sad for a lot of people, also for all the international guests and stuff who are like not allowed to leave their respective countries for in most cases. Right? Like everybody has travel bans, like from the international. So even if it would take place, nobody would come. So it's just the only sensible thing to cancel it. But yeah, this is like this was the first time when we sat down and said like, oh, okay, wow, this is really impacting us in a high way, like impacting everybody in a major way.
Yeah, they're like here in the United States, they're starting to close schools, and they canceled Game Developer Conference, they canceled Google I/O, Facebook F8, What else? The Apple
I
keynote.
mean, all the music festivals and get-togethers.
Yeah.
Those are all.
South by Southwest was canceled. Um, yeah, it's getting pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, the those of us that work from home, we look like geniuses now, right?
We have the capabilities to subsist on minimum social interaction for like the longest time. We trained for this. We trained for this.
In
Now
the
we
news, they
aspire.
said stop touching people. Everyone that works from home was like, exactly.
What people? Are there other people? Really? Haven't seen some in weeks.
Brutal.
So I was telling Toby before we went live. Toby lives just north of where I was stationed when I was in Germany for the army. I used to live in the middle of nowhere. The nearest town was Engstegen, which is close to Reutlingen, which is close to Stuttgart, which is close to you.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to the movies there in Stuttgart or so? There's one little cinema called the Corso in Vaihingen, which is like the only one where you can see like original language version films.
Oh, cool.
And there's a pub next to it called Ye Old Rogue. It's like an
I've
original
probably been to the pub,
There's a
not
lot
the
of
movie.
Marines usually there.
I probably went to the pub. I didn't go to the movies.
Okay, I see. Because it's a place I know that sometimes you find like Marines hanging out from the base and stuff, because it's like the owners are like English speaking, and it's like really like an original Irish pub with all the trimmings.
Okay.
Yeah, very cool.
So I thought you might have heard of it, but no.
No.
Yeah.
I know people that probably do know. I still have a lot of friends that still live down there, and anyway, I was out there last summer. I was there. I was in Stuttgart and Reutlingen, and we ended up going to Munich, which is absolutely amazing to me.
It's cool. Never been, honestly.
No?
For some reason, I've never been to Munich. Ever.
It's funny. A lot of my friends that live in Reutlingen have never been either. I'm like, you're right there. And it's a wonderful place.
I think it's this thing where like you could always do it, and that's why you never do it. It's
exactly.
Like, you have something right outside of your door. Yeah, there you go. I went to it's like, I mean, not right now with the virus, but usually it's such a nice thing to live in the middle of Europe, which I highly appreciate. Sometimes I have sometimes you do that occasionally, right? Do like a weekend trip somewhere, which is you have I mean, I've been in the US also for like half a year, and just like the distances you have to travel between places, right? Like you drive for like 10 hours and you're just in the neighboring state. When you drive for 5 hours in any given direction in Germany, you're in France or in Italy or in like Poland or in Czech Republic. And there's like such a big diversity of like, especially if you're interested in that, cultures and styles of architecture and history that is like just outside of your doorstep, and you never really take advantage of it because you could always do it. And it's like some years ago in the studies, I went to visit a friend of mine who lives close to Venice, or like his family is close to Venice, and went down there, and it was just over the weekend, and just like walked around and he showed me around the city a little bit, and it was beautiful. And it's like, it's not that long of a trip. And I thought like, man, why don't we do this more often? Kind of like, look at the things that are right outside the doorstep.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Only reason I do any sightseeing around here in Northern California is because of all the vineyards. And I like wine.
It's nice. Yeah, you have the good weather up there as well.
Yeah, weather's not bad. So you were talking about your business partner. How long have you and your business partner been working together?
Yeah, so Carol and me, Carol Ratajczak, by the way, his full name.
Shout out,
so we met in basically in the first year of college. Like I started, so a little bit maybe to start off, like where I come from, just as as an artist. So I started working quite early as a self-taught artist. Basically, straight when I went out of high school, I had this dream of being like doing fantasy art and stuff, like, you know, what I was into back then. And I wasn't a big fan of like this kind of, you know, graphic design, and I didn't want to do like cubes and web design. I wanted to paint dragons and monsters and spaceships and stuff. And there wasn't really a path of education that supported that. And some of my stuff that I posted back then online got a bit of traction, and I got like a job offering from like a small video game company, like an outsourced company that did like art assets for a variety of games. Small town in Volkach in Bavaria. The company was called Virgin Lands Animation. And I basically started working there without any formal education. And when I quit there, moved to Hamburg, went freelance, I just continued working for like 7 years. First there and then freelance, and just was transitioned from texture to concept art, and I just did my thing. And then like 2012 I hit this point. This is a bit self-indulgent, so it's like rambling on the past story.
No, go for it.
I thought it might be interesting. So 2012 I hit this point where I felt like there was no option for me to develop any further, like in my, like professionally, in the ways like how do I pay the bills, but also like in my own creative endeavors. I kind of hit this like hard stop where I felt like, okay, this is kind of the end of the road. This is all I can develop in this path. And I became really, really down and depressed all the time. And I had to do a little bit of soul searching. And the only, what I came back to is like, okay, animated films, like what I always wanted to be into and never dared to, because all this time I used to work for video game companies, basically, which is fine. And still some of my best friends are from the, but I always was into, okay, animated film. This was like this lofty goal that I never thought achievable, or like I never thought, oh, it's just, there's no money in it or whatever, and I don't know anybody in the industry. And then I decided to apply for Filmakademie in Ludwigsburg. Okay. It was like the school that is like right in front of my door around here. And lo and behold, they wanted me, and this was like the best decision that I could have made, just to go to college again, age 26, basically. Which is also like made easier here because it's like a public school, so you don't have to pay any tuition fees to study there. It's like $200 a year or so just for like public transportation tickets. And as a guy who was not very rich, in fact, like really struggling financially back in the days, this also was great that there was this option for this kind of 4 years of college that I signed up for.
So it's a full 4-year college?
Yeah, it's a full college. So I'm gonna turn 33 this year, and have been studying, like the Filmakademie has been my life for the last couple of years. And Carol, I met that guy like basically the first day of like applying for the school and in the selection process and what have you. And I think our first project was in the first year where we had to do some like live action filmmaking. You have mandatory live action filmmaking, right? It's like where you get given a camera and you have to hire some actors and then stage a little something, right? And we hated it so much. Jesus Christ, we hated it so much. It's like
you hated the filmmaking process with actors, or
yeah, this like I don't want to be unfair to actors. I just like
no, of course,
something for being on set. It's like it's an incredibly stressful atmosphere. And I think part of this is like, you know, being in a student environment where maybe you have those guys who are like actually from the live action department who want to may do their very best and maybe are a bit like dickish. There's a very strict hierarchy as well whenever you're on a live action set, which it's really like a regiment. You have like a person who gives the orders and then a hierarchy of people who follow the orders on set. And I don't know, just like, I think we're just those spoiled guys who like, okay, we do stuff with a computer and there's always time to talk about it and about like hierarchies and stuff in the middle of any given situation. You're never in this concrete stresses of having to work on like we have to finish everything in this one day, right? We work for like 3 months to prepare something, and then in this one shooting day, everything has to fit. Yeah. And after this, no way to change it. This is what we shot. This is what we have to work with now.
Yeah.
And this is like, I really enjoy the CG pipeline in the way that you just like work cumulatively instead of like just focusing everything on this very small, condensed time frame where everything comes together. I mean, obviously it's different in big production today's anyways, with like the post-production, what have you. But I think the truth still holds up a little bit. Again, we hated it. Just we went to the pub afterwards when the project was finished and like oh, never again live action, yay! And we were so happy that we never had to do live action filmmaking again. And so we became good friends, and like in the subsequent years when we went through these steps of like the mandatory projects that we had to do in Filmakademie, we found out that our skill set complemented each other kind of brilliantly. So I came from concept art back then. This is what I still do as like a main source of income. I'm doing like visual development, concept art, and bunch of storyboarding, which is like also a thing that kind of lends itself to that. And I also, in my years in academy, I learned how to do character animation in Maya, for example. Nice. So I kind of could cover more or less the front end of the pipeline. So concept art, previs a little bit, storyboarding and animation. And Carol is really good in like modeling, ZBrush, then all pipeline things, rendering, lighting scenes, and bit of compositing. So we found out, hey, just with the two of us, we can make quite a cool thing. It was like a third partner in crime, like Arash, Sayed Ahmad Hosseini is called Arash. He's like a technical director who like wrote like custom tools for us. Where this kind of three guys who always hung out together and like did things together. And this was the first time where we realized, hey, we can actually realize projects on our own. Just small projects, yeah, but still, it's not that hard to make a little film just by yourself or just with a small talented group of people. And this was kind of like this blew my mind, you know, from school. Would have never guessed that this was that. Well, no, it's never easy, right? But when
you work, sure is a lot easier these days.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, this the reason why you guys contacted me is because I made this weird little test with Blender because I didn't have a lot to do like in January.
So what you guys can't see is I've been showing your portfolio this whole time that we've been talking. Wow. So now that you brought up that animation, I'm going to run through it real quick. It's about 55 seconds long, but it's it shows the process of Tobi developing this story and the look and feel of this animation, and it's just absolutely brilliant. If you can remember, and it's done in Blender. So we just did the blocking, we just did the line art. Can you go through and explain a little bit and I know that you can't see it, but you were there. Can you explain a little bit the process of the different steps, and what are you trying to achieve with these very clear steps?
Okay, so the reason why I did this thing was basically I didn't go into this project with super clear intention of, I'm gonna make like a finished scene out of it. Me and Carol, we work for Axis still and did a lot for Axis Animation during the last year. And in Axis, there was some like film clips going around showing some of their directors like doing some cool 3D storyboarding with like Blender and grease pencil and how to combine like 2D and 3D scenes and make really cool camera movements with like drawn characters in it. And then I thought like, yeah, might as well try it. So this thing started as kind of a little test just to see, could you use this maybe as a pipeline tool if you want to do a storyboard or so. So first of all, I basically started stream of consciousness modeling something, put a bunch of houses in a scene, put a street in there, and might as well do like a motorcycle driving through there. And what is it driving away from? Oh, I guess it's a monster. So let's put a sphere back there and like let's animate the sphere and swing the camera around, and there you go. And then how do you start anything creatively, right? Like a lot of times it just, or for me at least, it starts. Yeah. No. I don't know. For me, at least, it starts a lot from just this random place or so.
Right.
I think some of the best ideas or for me personally, that I ever got was just like from sitting around in a cafe and having some stupid idea with somebody that you talk with, right? And then you start to do, that actually doesn't sound too bad, and then you start thinking about it, ruminating about it, and it just kind of grows. It's
So you kind of came up with this concept of. So was the intent when you originally came up with it like, hey, I wanna develop something in Blender because I know you can do the combine 2D and 3D, or was it like, I have this idea of this guy riding a bike down a street with a dynamic camera, let's see how to do, like, how did you, from which direction did you approach it?
So it was really more a software test that escalated.
Okay. Right. I mean, I'm a huge fanboy of this. I mean, that's obviously what we've been following Blender on the show for a really long time, mainly because it's free. But Carlos and I got super interested in it because of the grease pencil 2D aspect, and this by far is like the most impressive test of it that shows that it's so true. It's like totally like viable as like final production quality. So I mean, to set out as a software test, I think you kind of blew it out of the water. But
thank you. I lost my body was kind of done almost, I think, exclusively in Blender or to like 90% in Blender.
Yeah,
so I think there's super successful commercial products out there that utilize it. And I'm not even that deep embedded in the Blender community, No. Which I'm also super nice, just like as a side tangent there, just the way the Blender community responded to this was amazing. Just the amount of
away.
I don't know if you've ever heard of CG Cookie, but cgcookie.com is a company that belongs to a friend of ours. We all went to school with him. But he also, I think, what is it, Blender Market or something that he runs?
Charlie's
Blender Market. Yeah. Anyway, his name is Wes Burke, and I had invited him to come on, but he's in Chicago. He's got like 24, 25 kids now. So like
both kids.
Yeah, seriously, I think he's got about 4 or 5 kids now. So when it comes to this time of night, I don't know if he has any gas left in the tank, but yeah, I invited him to come on because I know he's a big, I know his company helps fund the Blender Society and all that stuff. So I wanted to have him on here too, but obviously he couldn't make it. So, but it might be like, don't let me forget, I would like to connect you guys because whatever he can do to help more of this happen, this needs to happen.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm in the process of extending this film to making like a little 40-second affair out of it, And again, just like the help you get when you show something cool, and then there's so many people contacted me over Facebook and stuff and say like, hey, I work on Blender, or like embedded in the community, and just offering to help out, or to render stuff, or like if you have questions, just let me know, and recording little videos for you. It's just amazing to me.
So, like, I know you're not like super embedded in Blender, and I don't want to like derail this into like a super technical thing, but like just from a Blender standpoint, or like while you're using a new tool, like what did you at least like, maybe just like an overview, like what have you learned like that Blender is doing really well, or that or at least the methodology you've created? I mean, you show it in the breakdown video, but I just would be curious to hear like what, because this is such a successful test. I'm kind of curious to see what you're like, this is how I could do this as a production, or maybe this part needs more work.
So I'm obviously no like pipeline artist.
Yeah.
So, but what I found remarkable when setting up this scene is, again, as said, this scene was not planned as like a big thing, right? I didn't think I would work on this for like a month, or what I ended up doing. So the scene was kind of dirty in the beginning, to be honest, and really, really simple. It was just some basic geometry and some like super scribbly, the most dirty of line arts over it.
Yeah.
And the way this developed is basically I took this like very simple thing, and then I pushed it further and further, and then I started to clean up the file. And I think my only intention was I wanted some kind of semi-complex camera movement in there, some kind of camera swing and like dolly out. So I tried to incorporate this. And then I noticed that it was really easy, actually, in Blender to take this kind of very rough thing and just like continuing polishing it. There were certain steps that you needed to take. But I don't think there was any point where I had to like do a major reset or so. It just like was really easy to just iterate on the thing. And for the first couple of weeks, I didn't even think about it so much, right? I was just, oh yeah, let's work a little bit more. Let's put some more in-betweens in this character animation, I guess. Oh yeah, the face expression doesn't look so good. Let's redraw it. And it just grew and grew and grew. Yeah. And what I didn't know, I could find very cool like online tutorials for usually. And then I noticed, oh wow, this can actually look really sweet after a while. And I decided to push it to the end. And then obviously you have to do a little bit of extra work, like compositing it together and stuff. But I feel like this is what it's really enjoyable about like this working in Blender, especially as somebody who comes from 3D originally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you clearly have a 2D skill set. I mean, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that. I mean, clearly, part of the reason this is so good is just like the 2D animation is really great, and that just doesn't come from just having Blender. So, I mean, that's clearly a component of it. But yeah, I mean, so you mentioned a couple of times that you come from mainly 3D, but like obviously you do a ton of concept work, and so how is that starting to merge in your daily career and projects? Like, are you constantly trying to merge them? Is it happening naturally in the industry, do you find, or is it forced?
That depends really on the job. So I started from a really early age doing 3D, and my first couple of jobs in the industry were actually 3D based. So I was like a lighting and rendering artist and a texture artist before I transitioned into concept art, which I did on the side all the time. And I found it to be really useful in general, to, even if it wasn't impacting my own workflow so much as a concept artist, to know the baseline of 3D. And because you're never working on an island, right? Your work as a concept artist is always related to other people in production who have to take your work and take the next step with it. And it's great if you understand what people need your work for and what questions you need to answer with your WizDev or whatever you're doing. That said, it's tremendously helpful to be able to do 3D blockings for certain situations, like when you want to do like a complex scene. And yeah, again, like in school, I found character animation very super interesting, and I don't think it's super nice of you that you say that this my little test contains cool character animation, but I know some like 2D animation geeks that would highly contradict that and say like, no, this is horrible, and you messed up all your in betweens or whatever. So
here in America, we call them haters.
I definitely wouldn't call myself like an animator. I can do like a serviceable animation. Like I think a big reason why this test was received so well is also because of the very nice backgrounds, which is like for me the least entertaining part of it, because that's what I know how to do, and that's kind of what I earn my money with usually, just to make a nice background, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell. I mean, the way that you've got the map paintings and kind of the pseudo 3D setup. I mean, it works super well overall. But yeah, it's quite an achievement.
Hey, we got someone in the chat room who is hell bent on going to this film school.
Go ahead. I mean, it's like a small school, but I can really highly recommend it. For me, it was. In retrospect, it was the best decision that I ever made in my life.
Do they take non residents?
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh, they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most classes are in German though, so that is like the one.
Ah, well, there you go.
We have.
You better get Google Translate quick.
It's not we have a. Like, just to answer the question, like if somebody is like interested in this, there's a bunch of people who are like English speaking who go to the school, because it's not like Gobelin, for example, in Paris, you know, where you go there and you have like lessons 24/7. It's a really self-taught school, and this is also something to keep in mind. Like, I'm just giving a outline of for anybody who might be interested in going there. It's not that you have classes where they teach you how to draw or how to use Maya and stuff. Basically what they say is, okay, we have a couple of internationals who come by and like give some talks for a couple of days. Otherwise, here's a workstation, here's a couple of people that are good in their things. Go nuts. Just like have half a year to make a film. And I love doing it this way. And then, of course, you have like groups where you discuss it afterwards, what you did. But it's a really self-reliant system where you're supposed to like communicate with your classmates, because there's always a guy in every year who's good in Maya. This guy is good in Houdini. This guy is good in storyboarding. This guy is good in storytelling, maybe. And this is the way I used to learn. Always, because I'm self-taught, so I really love it. But if you're expecting to have like hard lessons on how to like do, you know, become a better draftsman or so, that's maybe not the right environment for it. It's really like a continuation of being self-taught, and I found it enjoyable. It's not for everybody, I think, but yeah. So, but. Just the fact that you're in a small town, which first was like a hard selling point for me, because I used to live in Hamburg, kind of in a bigger city, and you move to this town, it's like, I don't know, how big is this here, like 20,000-30,000 people maybe. It's really small. But the good thing is there's not much to do. But the good thing is also there's not much to do.
Sure. So all you want to do is make stuff all day.
Exactly, and you constantly see your classmates, because there's not so many people there. So any given day you run into 3 people that you know, especially in the first year here. It's a bit like Hogwarts, you know. It's like a little like a boarding school, so you don't get away from each other. It can be stressful. There's like 3 pubs here, so first year you don't even make an appointment. You just go to a pub. There's always somebody there. It's great. And
so we're also on the show extremely huge fans of Klaus.
Oh,
yeah.
How did you come to be involved with this?
I think, man, Klaus. Yeah, Klaus was really brilliant. So, Klaus, I was contacted by a guy called Thorsten Schrank, who was like the character design lead on Klaus. I met Thorsten Schrank on a gig that I made for RealFX in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah.
And we were, I was doing some like pitch and whiz dev for them for, I don't know if I can say the project name, so I won't. But yeah, Thorsten Schrank was there. I never met him in person back then. Was always Skyping in, but he was doing some character design tests for it as well. And so when Klaus started up, he kind of contacted me and said like, hey, we're looking for people who help us with this and that. And are you interested in it? And I was like, yeah, cool. Klaus, heard of this? Very cool teaser that came out like a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Remember this first trailer? And yeah, that's the way I ended up in there, basically. Just because a guy that I know, also like this whole contact came out of Filmakademie, more or less. Okay. Just over 3 steps removed in the process. Filmakademie is very good in connecting people. It's like their biggest thing that they do also.
How big was your graduating class?
It's like 13 people usually.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. It's really small. It's a really familiar pound, and you have a lot of international people. I think I have to shout out at this point like Patrick Hahnberger, who's like an guy who came to our school, like German guy who has been living in LA for like forever now. Ex DreamWorks head of production design. I think he did the Rise of the Guardians and a couple of other ones.
Amazing.
And he was kind of my mentor I met him in the second year, and he took me in, and it was my first contact to like bigger animated features, and all these things came from kind of the exposure that he provided me to like the world of professional design for film.
Yeah.
And this contact with Thorsten Schrank was the same. Managed to get on Klaus, and Klaus was a fantastic experience, especially because the biggest reason why they took me in, which is like the dream for every concept artist, they said like, okay, we have this team of people on location and they're doing like backgrounds and stuff, trying to copy the look. And Sergio Pablos is looking for somebody who can just like throw in little stupid ideas, because they felt like, because they felt like the in-house artists were so focused on like hitting the look and doing like all this serious, production stuff, that they wanted somebody from outside who would just like provide some stupid ideas. They can like say, hey, can you come up with, 20 weird things, weird little props that we can place throughout the city or so.
So it was like to provide like a alternate look, some new fresh eyes, or it was just something that they weren't already focusing on?
No, it was just like bringing some extra interesting stuff in there, which is like a very thankful gig. Some little like storytelling, storytelling that you can do with background elements, not necessarily like. If it's a cannon hanging from a couple of ropes in the city, or if it's like, my biggest sequence that ended up being like my main gig almost is this Museum of Tradition sequence in the middle of the film, where the two families basically present, spoiler alert, by the way.
If you haven't seen it yet, shame on you. You deserve the spoiler alert.
Stop watching the show and go watch Klaus.
Yeah. So there's a sequence in the middle of the film where those two families who are like very much in hate with each other since like forever, they catch two children playing with each other in kind of a Romeo and Juliet situation. And they take each of their respective kids, they take them to the side and say like, okay, let us show you why we don't hang out with those other people. And each of those families have their own museum of hatred, basically.
Museum of hatred.
Yeah, where they collected like relics from throughout their history that shows like the conflict play out between those two factions throughout the ages, basically. And they needed just a tremendous amount of that, just little props. A lot of them also didn't make it into the film, and just like that was a big part of the gig, just like gathering ideas of what could be those props to display this history through of conflict, which is brilliant because I wouldn't say big history nut. That would be offensive to real history nuts. But but I love just cultures and their different like design language that cultures use throughout the ages, right? And it was like a cool opportunity to like go through a bunch of references and like look at a lot of things and just try to come up with like wonky, funny ideas on how to like make this into something interesting in a film to display on screen. That's how I ended up on Klaus. There was a bunch of like also other set design, like unrelated set design, and this was my main gig.
Did they ever send you to Spain?
Yeah, I was in Spain for a while as well. So it was half because I was still in college here in Filmakademie, so it was kind of in the middle of my studies that I did this. But in the semester holidays, I was going there for like 2-3 months. I think it was on location. And it's brilliant. Like they really expanded the production team by a lot and moved locations. But back when I was there, it was still like I think 30 people or 40 people in kind of like a little 2-story affair in center of Madrid. And this was the part what I really enjoyed about it. It was such a familiar feeling team, you know, that you were even though it was this kind of big like Klaus, it's Klaus, you know, but I found everybody tremendously approachable. Also like cool. Sergio Pablos, you know, who are like you go hang out and have a beer in the evening. You all go to the pub and Sergio is there and all the others and all the team leads are there and you can just like hang out and have a good time, which is like I find this so great whenever I work for a company when I feel like everybody is just like, you know, human and approachable. And Access Animation is the same feeling that where we're working for right now. It's just like, it's just a bunch of folks who just happen to do film, you know, and they're all fascinated by it, but nobody's like the king of the hill, you know, like you can hang out with everybody. And there's like almost to me almost more important than to say like, oh, I worked on this great prestigious production is to have a great time while doing it. And even if the product is maybe not as giant as like the new whatever big blockbuster, so
that's super important too. I've seen that team dynamic in video game companies. I've never worked for one. I've always worked at places where it's a little toxic.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Trust me too. But I think, I mean, the point that you were making, like that whole, the team environment, the welcoming team environment is super important for creatives, especially creatives, because, you know, we're looking for our family, for the lack of a better term. We're looking for our family, people that know, like, you took a guy racing around on a motorcycle. You can show this to any normal person. They'd be like, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like Jack and I probably watched this about 100 times myself. Tobi's in Germany say, wow, my watch time on YouTube is skyrocketing. That was me.
It was all you guys. Okay.
That was us.
Yeah, man, thank you. I'm happy when if people enjoy it, like what you make. That's all you can ask for, right, as an artist.
Well, you can ask for a check too, but you know. Food.
That's
food.
True.
No, it's.
If you just do something for fun and then, you know, like
then hopefully the check follows.
Yeah,
we were. It's interesting you say that. I don't know if if you feel like the culture in Germany in general is a little bit more like that across the board with the arts community, or is it kind of mixed and you've got companies that are maybe not like that? Because this is kind of like a hot topic right now in the animation community. There was an artist that posted why she quit Disney, and her biggest complaint was,
I'll see that.
Yeah, we've all seen that. And her biggest complaint was exactly what you were just talking about, that she didn't feel at home. She felt like there was a hierarchy, that she would never be able to climb the hierarchy, that people were rude, that, the list goes on and on. And I know we were talking about before the show, just kind of the cultural differences around the world of all the people we've had on this show. And I'm just curious what your general evaluation of the German art community is.
It's like, we don't have that many studios that are playing in the same league, just not even close, right? Like,
yeah,
I think we have a couple of bigger studios but they're either like big video game companies like Crytek, for example, or they're
Is King
they're like
out there?
What? Sorry?
Is King out there?
No, I don't want to say where is King. I don't know, to be honest.
They're around somewhere.
Maybe they are. I don't want to tell anything wrong now.
Yeah.
We have a couple of big browser game companies like Big Point and Good Games that I used to work for as well in Hamburg for like half a year.
Cool.
Those are big companies. And then we have post-production houses like...
yeah. Well, Method Studios was a huge one that came out of Germany. Are they still based out of?
I don't know Method. I know there's Rise in Munich.
I'm thinking of Scanline.
Scanline, there's Rise, there's Pixomondo. Those are the three big ones. And I've never had too much direct contact with it. Like the biggest clients that I work for are international clients. Never like too big of film studios as well. I think actually access around the 200-300 people mark. It's like the biggest studios that I work for so far with direct contact.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how educated a statement I can make about the work culture. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a regional thing, just the way people operate in those companies. I think this kind of, or what you described in this video, this kind of being removed from your colleagues, that you're just this cog in the machine, just like churning away. I mean, at some point, it's unavoidable to go a little bit in this direction once you grow past a certain size as a company, I would say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I don't want to make any values judgments because I think we all felt like, or when we watched this video, we were all like, it's a bit like, yeah, come on, it's just the reality, that's how the business operates. But on another level in our brain, we're all like, yeah, we also kind of get it, where you're coming from.
Right.
Wouldn't necessarily quit my job, but we all kind of get it,
Right.
We've all been working long enough.
And that was always my point with that argument too, is I don't blame her for doing what she did, because I'm a big fan of people going out and doing their own thing. If you have a story to tell, go tell it. You don't need Disney, you don't need DreamWorks. If you have a story, and if you're a solid animator and you have the skills to do it, I'm a big fan. I'm one of your biggest cheerleaders. But the way she did it and the way that she's leveraging that situation, I think quite honestly, it's probably just lack of experience.
It felt a little bit like it, but again, I really don't want to make any judgment calls on people's life decision. And I feel like also if you want to be just more like let's say like a public personality or a YouTube personality, and do this more as a livelihood, then this is also fine. I mean, there's a bunch of artists who are right now way more famous for their like online presence as a personality per se, instead of their work, if you want, right? Which is, again, no judgment at all. I think that's like, it's great that those things exist, I think, and this is an option that people can take. I can just say like, I think all we can say is like how we reacted to it and how we felt about it. And there was always this mix of like, yeah, I get it, and I'm also doubtful of it and I get it, but that's how things are sometimes. Right. And you're used to it. Right. Became used to it. That said, I'm always grateful if a company manages, or any structure manages, to give this feeling to people. And I'm not sure if this is a thing that can be achieved with pure PR. I think that's a thing that has to be lived by a company in its culture.
It does.
That everybody is approachable. And I know I've been in productions where they didn't feel like it. So I can just saying the positive examples, for example, like Spa Studios and right now Access Animation in London and Glasgow, that are examples where I felt like everybody is there. I can't talk to anybody. I could go to the CEO because they sit in the same room as everybody else, and I can just like ask a question and I wouldn't be thrown out of the room. Nobody has like a secretary or a personal assistant or so. It's just not a thing. Just like everybody is like a human, and it's great. I enjoy this tremendously. Maybe it's also because I worked in video games for the longest time, the same as you, Carlos. And it's a bit. And I think because it's so young, the industry, I had the big boon of being in non-toxic workplaces for most of the time. I know it's a big problem in the industry. And also with like
And sorry. I think no, it's okay. I cut you off probably more than anything.
No, I'm just yapping on, just like scream at me. I'm yapping on.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I can take the day off. But no, I think like when I was coming up in the creative industry, I think especially gaming was still so new that they didn't really realize they were turning video game companies into factories, and they were just giving it gas, and they were redlining, and slowly but surely these companies started getting in trouble for overworking and underpaying and doing all that stuff. And you have to go through that to get to what Spa Studios has, right? Yeah. But you have Disney, and it's a little unfair to go into Disney with your own expectations and then try to tell Disney what to do. Meanwhile, Disney is like, look, we just bought Star Wars. Like, what do you want?
No, obviously. I mean, again, I think it's not wrong to have those expectations.
Right.
The question is, where do you look for them to be fulfilled, right? Disney wouldn't be the place that you go and say like, I'm gonna make my own film now. It's like not how it works, right?
Yeah.
The easy response to her video, she says, "Oh, I've been working in the industry for 4 years," and Disney would be like, "We're working on getting close to 60,
400 years,
100,
100." Yeah.
I mean,
I think they're getting.
Snow White was 39, and they were doing stuff before that. So
yeah,
we're creeping on 100.
I was going off of.
Do you include Oswald and stuff, right?
Yeah. If you the others, it's creeping on 100. Yeah.
So like it's good to have passion, but like I said, like she did exactly what she should have done. She wasn't happy there, so she took it upon herself to go and do her own thing. And I wish her luck. Like it's a big step. It's a big step to go and do anything by yourself. Whether or not you quit Disney, whether or not whatever. Like if you and Carol went out and you started doing your own thing, and it's a big deal, and hopefully people are making it a big deal for you, because it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Just maybe saying that point also maybe like in a bigger picture thing where I can understand where she's coming from. And because I think it's also wrong to say like all the blame only lies in her misconception of the situation, because it's a thing that you see all the time when you work in the industry, that you have big, giant, multi-billion-dollar companies who say like, we want some fresh young talent from schools.
Yeah.
How do we get this? We we construct this image around ourselves that we are this cool, amazing, creative work environment. We see this all the time. Not even big animation, big VFX companies. They're also real nasty sometimes when it comes to that. And it's like, pizza Thursday, and it's always a party here, and you never want to leave.
And then when you go, and then when you're trying to go home, they're like, "Where are you going?"
Exactly. And we don't want you for your creativity. We only want you to click on, to push a slider and nuke up and down, basically. I have a friend lives in London right now, Christian Bohm, also from my school, and I'm sure it's fine if I tell the story from him. I don't think he minds. So his dream during the studies was always, I want to work on Star Wars. Big Star Wars fan. I want to work on Star Wars. I want to work on Star Wars, and made a super cool diploma project. It's like doing a shading and lighting art, and transitioned into compositing and into Houdini as well. And he managed. So after he graduated, he managed to get a job at Industrial Light and Magic and work on The Force Awakens, which was amazing. And I think he worked there for like 3 months, and then he quit because he was one of I think 10 billion people working on this film, and all his job is to basically color correct other people's jobs. He had basically one curve that was his job to push up and down, and then he was hey, that's not what I went to school for, and that's not what I learned how to manage projects and be creative for, to just be this kind of tiny cog in a giant machine. But that's like your own decision to make, right?
Right.
What you want to do.
Because still. I mean, you've heard stories before of where people finally get into a studio and they start pushing that curve, and they're fine. They just wanted that studio on their resume, and they'll push that curve for 15, 20 years.
Honestly, and more power to them, because
exactly. If that's how you want to do
make a living, people have to pay bills, people have to feed their families, So that is fine. What I don't like is this kind of is this kind of air of creative freedom that those big, huge companies sometimes use to prey on people fresh out of college. Something like that. That's, I think, where criticism is justified, or at least you could argue more like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of breaking away from the big company and working on your own, I know you're working with Axis, but it sounds like you mostly work from home and remotely.
Yeah.
So are you freelance, or are you like permanently with them? How's it constructed?
No, I'm freelance. We used to I was in London on location with them last year throughout the fall, and because me and Carol directed like 2 projects simultaneously, which was really cool. One was like a Magic the Gathering trailer, and the other one was a Chinese show, which we're still working on, but we transitioned to so the trailer ended, came out, super great. And this Chinese action TV show that we're still directing is, I think, due to end in June or July this year. But the time schedule relaxed, and all the boarding artists are international anyways. So I thought might as well go do it remotely for now, because want to move to Leipzig very soon to wrap up some stuff. And it's half a week usually. So there's a bunch of time to freelance on the side. And actually this little Blender project developed because I was back here and I didn't know what to do with my half week off. Because, the other...
made a badass animation.
I mean, I was offline for my other clients for like more than half a year, and the jobs didn't roll in, and I sent some mails and like, yeah, we might have something for you in a couple of weeks. And then, okay, cool, got a couple of weeks of half time now. What do I do with ample free time? So that's how this developed.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let me now that we're talking about the Magic the Gathering trailer, I saw Landon asked a question. Love this Magic trailer. What was the process like working with WOTC?
That was interesting. So first of all, both Carol and me were really excited to get this because we both play this. We're big Commander players, actually. So in London, I went to the game shop like every weekend to sling some spells with folks. It was amazing. No, we were genuinely excited about it. It was a really, really involved process, which was a funny contrast to the Chinese show that we're directing on the side, because we have zero contact with the client. We just do like storyboards and animatics for them. And after 3 weeks, sometimes we hear, oh yeah, it was okay. But we never speak to them, like the producers speak with them. And that's it, right? With Wizards, we had like Skype conversation like literally 3 times a week. Like every 2 days, you sit down for an hour in the evening and you talk with the folks about what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So this project was especially nice for us coming out of school and with this intention of, hey, let's maybe build our own thing or maybe found our own studio or so at some point, because it was a directing gig. You know, it wasn't just a thing where they wanted us to do like artwork or so, which is usually what I make my money with. And Carol is usually working in like motion graphics and things like that for like automotive a lot of times. That's the things that pay the bills for both of us. So these were like new shores to head to. And this was also a thing where they got us a briefing. They said like, okay, you know, those are the 2 characters that we want this to contain, Elspeth and Ashiok, and it's supposed to be a horror thing. And this is the set that it's for, this ancient Greek themed. And yeah, this was the whole briefing. And then just please write a story and pitch this to us. So it's really cool to also have the opportunity to write something. And we sat down and researched. Yeah.
So just real quick, because I find that the title director is so dramatically different in each sector of the industry. So on this type of game teaser, what is the role of the director? So obviously writing and pitching them the concept.
So yeah, that was also an interesting learning experience for us because it was the first time we directed in a professional setting outside of school. So yeah, directors in this field, like when we're talking about, I think I can say advertisement, because that's in the end like what Access does a lot as well. It's a lot of shape of game trailers and stuff. In the end, it's advertisement for games and stuff. A lot of times it's developing pitches, like also the other directors that we get to know. Either you're on a project where your job is a lot of like client-facing communication for them, talking with the client, getting to know what their idea is, what you're doing, and then based on that pitch that you sold them, making sure that you guide that they get the ship from A to B, and roughly orient yourself on what was the vision in your original pitch that you want to convey. Mm-hmm. In the end, I would say, like, and this is a thing that you have to learn, it's always of getting this ship safe into the harbor on the other hand, because it's always stormy on the high seas, and your crew depends on you to not mess up. So it's always. So
are you overseeing a team? Are you just doing the story and then you kind of back off a little bit? Like, what is the? So overseeing a team, yeah, there's definitely a team. The contact with the team itself is actually really limited. There's department heads for each department, and usually your meetings is with the department heads.
because and this is also a thing that we had to get used to, which is like, from coming from school, we wanted to talk to everybody in person all the time because we're also really involved in production. But that can sometimes be tricky, because even though, and I'm going to try to make an argument now for like why this makes sense. No, it's a good thing, because you always have shortcomings in the things that you know about any given pipeline, right?
For
like,
sure.
I know a lot about design, but I don't know stuff about Houdini and how to build a special effect in Houdini, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So my feedback might not be received in the way that I think it will be received from an artist. If there's a department head whose job it is to take the feedback from a director and kind of interpret it maybe a little bit, that's a lot of what this pipeline comes down to, or like what this process comes down to, like just interpreting things, and taking things that the client wants. That is the point where the director slots, and taking things that the client wants and like processing and making a decision out of it to communicate to the department heads, and the department heads process this information and pass it on to the artists. And I feel like sometimes we wish that the process was more involved with more into the dirt, with the other guys, and like get there and get hands on and what have you. But you also have to realize just how tight the schedules are a lot of times, and there are these systems in place in order to make the production run smoother and to get these kind of things out in like 3-4 months, which is not a lot of time for a whole pipeline to go through. And you have to respect that. So that's a lot of the role of the director. It's just a lot of management, a lot of interpretation, and communication, almost all communication with people.
We had a friend of ours that's been on the show a number of times, Da Costa. He directed an animation, and I asked him if he liked it. He said he hated it. That was a lot of typing.
Oh man, yeah. You know what? I'm actually not too averse to this, because I feel like, or right now, for example, this Blender stuff that I do and doing the backgrounds for it. Right now, I'm having a freelance job where I have to paint. Another thing for Psyop, which is one of my biggest clients, doing like color boards. And I always feel I only have so much painting juice in me every given day. So there's like 6 or 7 hours of painting juice, and if this is spent, it's spent. Like I can't do any more.
Yeah.
And if I do more communication and meetings and spreadsheets and stuff, even though it's a bit boring, I can do the creative stuff in my free time as well, which is also a nice thing. That is like, I find this really enjoyable, and I find this more enjoyable the more I get older, actually. Like, I don't have this this burning desire in me, like, oh, I want to do art for movies, because I did do a lot of those things that I set out to do when I was like 18, and I'm kind of happy with what I achieved professionally right now, and I think like, okay, cool, now or like as a guy who paints pictures, basically, I achieved a lot of those things.
Sure.
And that's the reason why I say like, okay, what's next? How can we go forward from here? And this whole I really like the communication aspect, and I like being in meetings, actually, and like talking with people, and it's a great part of why we want to push forward into this direction.
That's really cool. I like talking to people too.
Yeah. You do a podcast, I hope you do. Yeah, well, no, it's a cool thing to be in this. There was sure a lot of things that we had to learn and get used to when we. And man, there was points where I was so angry at the world, and you're this. But you're always a little bit of spoiled brat when you come from university, right? Because like
Always.
you can do whatever you want, you can do your own projects. If you have a team that you have a lot of times, especially in Filmakademie, where you're encouraged to do bigger projects with more people, you only have to answer to like the heads of school. And this is not a hard briefing, right?
Right.
It's like, even if they say like, okay, I think your film would be better if you would do X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. You're always free to ignore this and say like, oh no, but I want to do this weird stuff that I'm, this weird experimental whatever, which we did a lot for our diploma film actually. Nobody's breaking your balls over it.
Yeah.
And for this one, it was like this balance of, oh no, you have to answer to people. It's just like the reality of it. And
not to mention, if you're in school, it's, I don't know how it is in the school that you went to, but the school that we went to, and I'm not trying to badmouth anyone. I'm not even trying to claim that I was the best artist. I'm just saying it's a lot easier to be the best in school than it is to be the best at a studio, because the studio is taking the very best from the schools. So now, the farther you go in your career, the more, dare I say, competition happens, because the longer the higher the ladder you go, the better the talent.
Yeah, man. Also, I'm not even sure. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and the fewer spots available.
Yeah, that too.
There's a lot of spots for curve pushers. There's very few for, high-end directors.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm so much subscribing to this whole system of like being the best, because I used to think in these terms when I set out, like when I was like 18, 19 and painting and drawing, think like, oh, I want to be the best Photoshop artist or whatever, or the best 3D modeler, whatever. Mm-hmm. And after a while, when you work a little bit, you realize that it's in the end, it's a creative industry, and there's so many vast talents.
Yeah.
Everybody is really good at many people are really good at a specific thing. And if you don't try to push yourself into a thing that you're not built to do, then it's fine. Like, I will never be a great realistic artist. I tried the other day when we started this managing, let's do some realistic Photoshop painting, like some real epic fantasy art. And I tried for the longest time to do this. I'm just so bored by it. I want to polish like the little stones, I brought a million little stones into this wall now. And it's like, no, why? I just put
I mean, the sheer vast variety of needs in the industry is kind of destroys the whole concept of being the best. I mean, it's like you see the masters from like, and I'm not talking about like Renaissance masters. I'm talking about like masters from like just the 70s or whatever. You see these like matte painting guys that did these hyper realistic backgrounds that were used in the backgrounds of feature, and you're just like, man, I'll never be that good of a painter. But then it's also like, I don't really want to be that guy. It's like, I can envy his skill, but like, is that the skill that I want to have? There's many other needs in the industry.
Absolutely. And if you talk to those guys, I'm sure they're jealous of people who say like, really? Like, you're jealous of this guy, this kind of weird guy who draws like a red cube on a canvas and calls it a day. So I talked to, like when I was on Klaus, I talked a lot with like Simon Bjernacki, like one of the art directors. It's Simon and Marcin. Maybe you've heard of those guys. They make this amazing, that they made all this kind of pitch art for Klaus, these kind of amazing sweeping vistas of this, in this super cool signature style. And we were walking to lunch one day and talking about like our art and stuff. And I was like, oh yes, Simon, he's like one of the best, and he's so good. And he was like, a bit down in this day and was like, "Oh man, Tobi, I'm so jealous of the way you draw. It's so like loose, and you don't give a shit." And I was like, "What? You're jealous of how I draw? I just don't give a shit. I just like make a and I scribble inside of." And it was like, "Yeah, but I always polish too much, and I have my style that I'm always following, and I wish I could just like experiment more and stuff." And it was like, "Oh yeah, cool. This guy is jealous of other people for reasons that are so foreign to me, because I'm like, oh, he made it. He's like, everybody is jealous of everybody all the time. Like,
right.
And it's the human artist condition.
And look at because you can arguably say Calvin and Hobbes is artistically better than Charlie Brown, but Charlie Brown is a money-making machine. So who wins?
I think it's apples and pears. They're both brilliant in their own respect. They're both and if you're talking about just the line work, for example, that's like they're both deeply philosophical works in their own respect. Calvin and Hobbes and Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Peanuts, yeah. So this is like, there's so much more to art than just the pure quality of the line that you make on a canvas, right?
Exactly.
That's like one aspect of it. But I know, like one of my favorite, the coolest people that I know from Filmakademie, Michi Bohnstinger. He's a guy who doesn't draw very nice, and I think he would be the first person to admit that. He draws like stick figures, right? So the roughest of storyboards. But that is because all his efforts are in storytelling. So he's a pure storyteller, and he doesn't want to be anything else. He will probably never make a film where people say, "Oh, this blows me away in the way this looks like." But that's because he has like a project that's like 5 months long. He develops the story for 4.5 months, and then spends 2 weeks making the actual thing. But this shows, because whenever it is in any showing, this is usually the audience favorite, because the ideas are just so brilliant and so funny. And this is like, there's so much value in this, and like, I find this so much more interesting than like this visual brilliance a lot of time. I mean, in the best case scenario, you marry those two, right? But like, if I have the choice, I would always go for like a cool story, I think.
Yeah.
It's also like what you're interested in doing, right? Because I'm not that great of a storyteller. For me, good visuals are kind of easy to produce, but like good stories, that's what I find fascinating.
Yeah. And like you said, the merging of those two, if you have a good storyteller and someone who's really good at visual storytelling, like that's a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
That's what everyone is looking for.
Yeah. I mean, also this kind of I think what we talked about earlier, this jealousy thing, everybody's always jealous of other people. It's a good thing, because if you're completely happy with where you are as a creative person, you stop developing in any way.
Yeah.
I think you just have to remind yourself sometimes that it's not all about the rat race. It's also about it's all about you have to take a look around. Otherwise, you will just like focus on what is the money making thing. And I feel that is. I sometimes feel sorry if I feel like people are just focused on what sells, what makes me more Instagram likes, or what, because it then becomes samey as well. There's like formulas that you can employ, and I love it when people have the time, and because I think real creativity requires leisure to an extent. You have to have a little bit of time. You cannot be really creative if you're constantly under 100% pressure. Maybe guys in like advertisement agencies will say like, no, of course you have to be constantly under pressure, but at least that's not how it works for me. You have to have these moments of like reflection, and also just like letting your brain wander,
right?
To be creative.
I was just going to add to that and say, I used to work at one of the bigger advertising agencies in the world when I lived in Chicago. And it was like that. It was just constantly just, this is due yesterday. This is due yesterday. And it took me until, I haven't worked for them in 7, 8 years now. And it took me until late last year to finally tell myself, relax, what are you doing? Go outside, do something that doesn't force you to feel like you're on a time crunch. And ever since I started relaxing and going outside and just taking time to develop the idea better, my artwork has gotten better, my storytelling has gotten better, my motivation has gotten better, just everything has gotten better. But it took me that long to get away from that mindset. Granted, there are times where you need to just shut up and do the job.
Obviously, yeah.
But especially if you're working on your own thing, like it doesn't hurt to create a new empty layer on Photoshop and draw that cartoon just one more time, just to see if you can do it a little bit better, And yeah, corporate America ruined me for a long time.
By the way, when you say new layer on Photoshop, just in case we have anybody listening or watching who's like also into like being creative and getting, I mean, I assume most people are who listen to this, but when you wanted to come up with something, I literally never managed to come up with a good idea sitting in front of Photoshop, in front of a white Photoshop canvas.
Yeah.
I always, no matter what, I always have to take a sketchbook and go to a cafe or so. Like, I don't know what it is. Yeah. Something about sitting in front of a computer, it kind of prevents me from having really good ideas, sort of like. I always have to take this hour or so where I sit down with a piece of paper and just like scribble with a pen some ideas, even if it's like just about image composition, just thumbnailing there. And then I can sit down, okay, those are some concepts, and I can refine it, even if it's the most rough of things. So I would say always do that as a first step, whatever you set out to do. Just like pencil and paper, and like get away from the screen for a couple of minutes.
You should see my reminders on my iPhone. I have so many reminders, and all that happens not in front of the computer. When I come in this room and I sit in front of the computer is to deliver on the ideas that I wrote down somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's usually, like Jack will come up and visit and we'll go wine tasting somewhere. And I think of something, or just, hanging out with my friends, you're, joking around and stuff like that. And like, I'll call Jack up every once in a while, being like, hey, I have an idea. Is this stupid? And then a lot of times he's like, yeah, erase that.
Hey, I don't do that often.
That's the best, though. Like, man, the slightly drunk ideas that spin into something more.
You're like, this was awesome last night. Is this any good now? And you're like, well, maybe there's something there.
The worst thing is if you have the best idea ever, but you can't because it's all like licensed stuff that you want.
Yeah.
I had a really good one at work the other day, and I don't even know if I should tell it here because it's actually a great idea, but it would require all like copyrighted stuff, and it's like, man,
go on.
But yeah, I mean, what you say is really interesting because I've experienced that, but also have not. But I do find that the mind kind of thinks in connections and pattern forming and like starting here and then moving to the next thing. And I think a lot of it for me is like I view the computer very much as a tool and like a doing device. And so when I'm in front of it, it's like I kind of go to that mode. It's like the only things I can think of are like, well, doing the project. But like if I'm trying to come up with a project or come up with a concept, it's like it's way easier to be out and make those, make those connections elsewhere. Like you see people talking, or you're talking just in random conversation, and the ideas kind of start to flow and connect. So I've certainly experienced that. But I do find even with the Photoshop comment, I do better if I just force myself to put something on the canvas, even if it's not what I want, just as long as there's something there, because then it's like, then the connections start to flow. That blank page syndrome.
And it's a thing where if you have an idea and you write it down, now it has an existence, right? That's a big thing too, because once ideas come in and they go out, and they come in and they go out, and that's it. But if you write it down, now that idea has an existence, and if you exist, you are important, and if you're important, then you need some brain power behind it. But then what you do, this happened just the other day. Landon, who's watching live, he reached out to us and he's like, hey, I'm kicking around this idea. What do you guys think? That's a step that's also important, because you don't want to be spinning your wheels on something that might not have legs, that might not be worth, or it already exists and you just haven't seen it yet. So you might be infringing on someone's copyright and you don't even know. So it's important to also share those ideas with people.
Yeah.
I think people that you need ideas. I think when you trying to come up with an idea that ideas that work are always ideas that have some sort of significance in like a social context. And I feel like part of it is I used to do this thing with Photoshop, right? Like everybody does, try it at some point, do this speed painting thing, right? Where you just take a brush and be in Photoshop and make an artwork, which is super cool. Highly super big shout outs to people who are good at this, because I'm not that good anymore. I never was that good. But I felt like whenever I tried to be creative in that way, it became way more about the process, about the medium of Photoshop. And I was thinking about the brush and the shape that I was creating and what I could do out of the shape. And that way it became kind of self-referential, on almost like I was repeating myself in the subjects that I covered. It always turned out to be another spaceship, another dragon, another whatever, because that's what you're used to through cultural appropriation. When you, I feel like a real idea about like a story or a little something to tell, where you actually want to have something to say, you need this exposure and this like leisure time to go out and find this thing that has a significance outside of, it's just a shape, it's just a thing that came blubbering out of my out of my pop culture filled subconscious, basically, right? So that's why this kind of going out and getting away from the software for a moment, I think it's super vital for many cases. Sometimes something super cool develops out of software. I'm not saying like this is like the approach that is like horrible. For example, this Blender thing, right, that I did.
Totally.
Same approach. Like I also started right with the software. But if you're like set out to do some specific idea or so, if you try to find the one cool idea, I feel like this other process, like where you try to structure it more in form of going out gathering ideas away from the computer screen, that's always the one that I would recommend taking.
I mean, you said it way better than I did. that was effectively what I was trying to say about Photoshop. Is it like I sit at the computer and it becomes self-referential. It's like I view it as a process, and it's like then I get stuck in how am I going to accomplish it rather than what even is it. Like I'm already obsessed about the process without even having like a place to go yet. If that makes sense.
Yeah, getting stuck on the looks of it or so. Yeah. Which is fine. There's like a beauty to this too, right? But,
for sure. You had mentioned, I think early on, that it got canceled because you had a trailer. Was this was your senior project? What is it? What is this project that you're working on with your partner?
You mean the one that got canceled because of FMX?
Yeah.
Installation? Yeah, this was our graduation film. It's called Mum. There's some stuff on my website about it as well. So we decided, because we were always really like, oh, how can we make projects that are like successful and people like it and it sells, best case scenario, This was like a lot of our work that we did in academy. So for graduation we thought like, okay, F it, let's just do something that's just weird and that only we like, basically. And spent 3 years on it, which is like,
that's wonderful.
Because we're both used to the industry, and we're both used to working for clients. We knew how rare it is in this life that we lead as artists, that you have this opportunity to just do something that you don't have to answer to anybody right? There's no client. There's just like, you can just do what you like of graduation. And we said, okay, let's really take advantage of this, that we don't have to answer to anybody and just do something that is so odd that, and we came up with this kind of black and white film with like 7 minutes. It's complete suicide to make 7-minute diploma film. But
that's an endeavor. And just two of you?
Basically we had some very cool help in compositing in the back end, and some Arash obviously for the pipeline, but the lion's share was just the two of us, just like me doing all the design and storyboarding and animatic work, and then the animation for the whole thing, and Carol doing all the modeling and lighting and shading and texturing and rendering. So it was quite a while, but and we had this, so in the film, what we do is we have a main character who has like a glass bubble for a head, and there's like a free floating blob of geometry, and we try to figure out, what's the face of our main character. Tried out a million different looks, and then I made at some point they made a photo bash where I just put a face of an actor, I think from an Kurosawa movie, on top of it, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. Let's just like get an actor, get a face cam, and just like take a video, and this is our main character's face. So our main character is literally an actor's face recorded and projected on a piece of geometry, which is like,
that's awesome,
the weirdest look, but it works somehow. And
I posted the link in the chat if you guys want to take a look at it. Yeah. It's scary.
It is, but that's what we love. We love scary stuff. I mean, big.
So where are you currently at in the process? Is it completed?
Yeah, it is sort of completed. I have like, so we have like 3 shots left to comp or so. It is like this thing that drags on forever. We graduated with it last year. There was like still a scene left, and then this Access thing happened and kind of fell by the wayside. And we were supposed to finish it now-ish in the next couple of months. Because, again, our head of school really liked it and wanted to make it the trailer for this year's FMX. But now with the cancellation, let's see if we're still planning on wrapping this thing up as fast as possible, because it has been too long now, just like on the back burner. And, this thing festering in the back of your brain. And, you're supposed to still finish this, right? It's like 98% there, but what about these last 2%?
You're gonna let that 2% just hang.
It's got to be right.
Yeah, it's also something that when you arrive at those points where it's about things that you cannot do by yourself anymore, and you need some help from other folks, because that's one thing that we're both not great at, like Nuke and like the whole very back end of compositing. And we rely on help, but like sometimes people have their own projects, like obviously and justifiably, and you have to wait for another artist to have some time to help you out there. Well, that's like the joys of production, but we're almost there with that close, literally, and it was great fun.
I just remembered you helped out on a project on Artella, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that was. It's funny when we talked earlier about this whole time difference and like, it's super late for you guys, it's super early for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was from a guy that I met here in a little studio called Studio Soy, Tim Rudder, and I think he did the what is it called, Animation Mentor with Bobby Beck.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And I think over those channels, he got this gig of, hey, I think Bobby Beck secured this of doing like a trailer for the CTN 2016, way back in the days. Directors were him and Vera Vignata. I'm not sure where he's working right now. Also like all Burbank-based folk. So yeah, and we made this Artella thing with like, I think in the end it was like 40 people or so. Wow. It was a lot of folk and super spread out over the world. It was the first time that I art directed anything, basically. It was great, but a lot of late night Skypes, and still one of the things that I'm super proud of, that we managed to pull this off, and the work that everybody put into it, and also like just the feeling of doing this next to your job and then like meeting everybody at CTN that year. It was end of 2016.
Yeah.
And just, being there on location, and then all of a sudden all those people that you only know from like little Skype windows for like the last couple of months, and finally being able to like,
Right.
and forcing some of the folks to have a tequila with you, even though they might not be into it.
Hey, Jack, when was it that we went? When did we go to CTN? Wasn't it 2016? 2015, 2016?
I don't even remember. Yeah, it might have been 2016.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 2017. I don't remember.
Nice.
I don't remember either. We probably passed each other in the hallway.
Probably, yeah. So,
I was the guy with all the Sketch Zone stickers.
Yeah, I had a nice conversation with Sid Mead there. It was like, whoa, Sid
Oh,
Mead.
that's cool.
Really, really nice. Yeah, no, this was great. Also just like, and that's, for me, that's so much of the appeal of this, what we're doing, right? It's like, you work, you crunch, and you do the late nights sometimes for things, hopefully for things that you're really into and passionate about, and not because your company asks you to, right?
Right.
But then having, when we arrived at CTN, me and Tim Rudder, like this Australian guy that directed this, we were early, like CTN didn't even start yet, and so like, okay, I guess let's go on a early afternoon pub bender through Burbank, and we just like called an Uber, and we went from like one afternoon until like late after midnight. We just Ubered through the city and just I guess we go to Hooters now, because that's a thing that I saw in The Simpsons once, and I want to. And it's like, it's actually not as sexy as everybody makes it out to be.
No.
And it was just a great time, and like seeing all of this kind of, you made it, right? You made it, and you pulled through in the end, and now you kind of reap the benefits, and you have a beer with all the folks that managed to do this with you. And this is like, there's so much of the appeal of it, like the way you grow together as friends for this. I love it.
So it was a positive experience.
Absolutely. There was stress and some drama, but there's never anything without stress and drama.
It's never. It's not always going to be 100% happy all the way through.
Yeah. But there was no. I think the only time when I would say something is a really bad experience, when there's people who are all passionate about what they're doing, and there's nobody who's trying to assert power over other people in a way that's inappropriate.
Right.
I feel like there's always going to be a nice experience for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because you can always bring up ideas. It's the way, again, the way that you react within the team environment, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to win them all. You're not going to lose them all. Just share your ideas. Be ready to get them beat up. And you just never know. Like, it might, it might turn out to be, and I've seen this happen where you come up with an idea that at the time people think it doesn't fit or it's just not a good idea, and then you progress through the story, and then you come back and you get to the point where you're like, oh wait, you remember that one thing that didn't work? It works over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And that's it's called teamwork.
It's
It's called teamwork.
These are the collaborative arts, after all.
And then project-wise, not creative-wise, not team-wise, but like the way that the way that the project existed within the framework of Artella. Did that make a lot of sense?
So I was not on the forefront of this whole discussion because my job was mostly doing like either pieces of art, or I did like, as you always do in those cases, do tons of paint overs, just like getting layouts and stuff and like doing little, sketches. I'm like, hey, move this over there.
Sure.
So Artella also provides this kind of file structure that you work into, right? It's like Dropbox a little bit, or Drive, if you have this set up like that, where you have this file system that lives somewhere on your computer.
Yeah.
And you have this sort of like check-in, check-out system for files. That's the way that you share work over like different countries and workstations. And I feel like people who are more involved in like the 3D pipeline in this project would be way more interesting to talk to when it's about the nitty gritty of like how exactly Artella works when it comes to this. I know that there were some issues here and there, but I think the overall experience was really a positive one, and I feel like we're all kind of happy that this existed, because we managed to do it with like 50 people in like 20 different countries. That's literally amazing. And that it was possible. I feel like, you could use Google Drive and stuff for this, but you have it all like in one location, and you have like a shotgun-esque review structure built into the thing at the same time, where you have like almost a forum or like a timeline where you see new developments. Has been a while now since I was on there, but it has legs, definitely. I hope that those guys make it and do more cool things on this website.
Yeah. I've actually talked to Bobby, and I have an account on Artella and all that stuff. So yeah, you're the first person that I've actually been able to ask about the actual Artella, the framework of Artella. Because there's a lot of, I was a programmer, animating and programming thing, whatever. I was a weirdo, but the software that we used when we were doing development, and you had your own code base, you would check it out, so then that way no one would be able to overwrite what you're working on. So it's really cool to see that Artella took that same mentality and applied it to creative files, because you work on a painting for a couple days and you put it up there. If someone overwrites it, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah, obviously. It's like, again, as I'm like a freelance, I'm not too exposed to that. I mostly just deliver things to client when they're done. But I mean, definitely, like it's such a huge tool, and that people never always underestimate is this like pipeline. Like how does your pipeline work when you tackle anything in the beginning? Like there's literally a whole class that you can study in Filmakademie that's just about pipeline, how to build a pipeline, how to manage a pipeline. And it is important. You always think like, I'm just gonna jump in there and just like make some big thing with like 100 CG characters running around, but no, you won't. Like you can do a thing with like one character and like cool set, sure, but like as soon as it gets more complex, you need somebody who looks after your pipeline, how you do stuff. Appreciate those guys. Like they work hard for to be creative on top of all their hard work.
the unsung heroes for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of behind the scenes work.
Yeah, and that's I mean, managers too. Like when you're a creative in a team, those managers are very important, even though they're not necessarily the creative types. You need them there, man, because they're the ones that they keep the information straight and they deliver to whoever needs it, and they keep the wheels rolling. Because especially as creatives, man, we get disenchanted with something and that's it. Like, like we were saying earlier, you're working on a project for years and you're 98% done.
Yeah.
And
actually, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Because there was this question earlier on how it is with being a director in a company like Access. Mm-hmm. So if you are aspiring to do that, I would highly recommend that you get comfortable with producers and their job, because with all the people in the team, with producers, you more than with anybody else have sort of a relationship, like a real relationship with all the ups and downs and fights. You fight, you make up, and like
right.
It is. Right. It really sometimes feels like you're you're married or so.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to understand where they're coming from and also like appreciate, and what they do is super vital for the production, for the whole project to work out.
Yeah.
And it couldn't do without. They're like always on the grind, and sometimes they say no, we can't do it, and you get super mad because you're supposed to be the big creative honcho, right? It's like, oh, I want. Yeah. No. It's like appreciate each other, like in this relationship. It's like it's literally like I hear you, I understand you, and then like in marriage counseling.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when I was at Leo Burnett, man, we would be working on the project, and everyone would just be heads down, just working. And then it was inevitable. There was a misunderstanding, there was something happened, or you didn't deliver, or whatever. There was a big argument. And then, but once the project was delivered, everyone would go out to have some drinks, and they apologize to each other and say, "Hey, I didn't mean to say that about your mother." And then you say, "All right, I'll see you next project when I'm cussing you out again."
Yeah. But I lost my temper also, like more than I intended to in occasions, and you always feel sorry in the end for like doing that, because it's not helpful for anybody to lose your temper.
Right.
But happens, and you have to like work through it somehow.
I think you have to understand. Don't take it personally. Like, you don't know what that person went through. You don't know if they're not feeling good, if they didn't get enough sleep, whatever. So take it with a grain of salt, and then just come back the next day and kick butt. Go have a drink later and apologize, like you said.
That again, so vital, man. Like when we butted heads with like producers, like over at Axis in the Glasgow office, like there was also like some talk, and you go to these official meetings, like with the HR representatives from the company, and say, hey, let's work it out. But how you really work it out is like if you just go have a beer or 5 in the evening, and you get real. And the first beer is still reserved, but after beer 5, you're always like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I was."
Exactly. And
all
now you guys have a story to tell.
It's good. That's what God invented beer for. It's like for these things to reveal of themselves.
Yeah.
Social lubricant. No. I don't know. I like the industry.
I agree.
I can't not at this point. Like nobody will hire me for anything else anyways. Like, I'm stuck here. But man, I just love everybody. I love the folks. I love the community.
Yeah. Overall, I would say it's a positive. It's a good group of people. I mean, it's effectively all the passionate nerds that all collected in one place.
They found their group.
Absolutely.
They found their team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start wrapping this up because it's an hour and 50 minutes that we've been talking.
Wow.
Not that I want to shut you guys up. I don't. But if I keep yawning, you guys are going to say something. But no, we would love to have you back, and even bring Carol next time, and we can talk about whatever projects you guys have going on, all that good stuff. Like you're part of the family now, so
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It was a blast, and would love to show what we're up to next. And I'm sure we're gonna start something very soon.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Again, like I'm right now extending this little animation there, this little Blender thing into like a little 30-second short, and I'm hopefully gonna post some more things on YouTube soon. That's a thing that I started. So yeah, like and subscribe.
You've got at least 500 views between me and Carlos.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, sweet. It's just sometimes hard to like, oh, okay, what do I do a video about now? I don't have anything cool and new to show.
Even earlier tonight when we were showing it, like I changed the camera to Tobi's camera feed, and I was going like frame by frame, just trying to break it down. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'm just gonna do like record a background painting or so next. Well, let's see.
Yeah.
I'm on this point now where I have to sit down again and draw a bunch of houses and stuff and color them nicely, and yeah. So might as well.
So if people want to find you and your YouTube channel, and I know you have Instagram because I've been harassing you on Instagram now, where can they find you?
So you can either follow me on Instagram on Tobi_Trebeljahr. I hope you guys. It's a complicated last name. I hope you guys gonna drop it in the show notes or something.
Yeah, it's already in there. Yeah.
So in either Instagram, I try to be active. You can find me on my blog on Tumblr, t-tops.tumblr.com, or on the YouTubes lately, where I'm trying to post some videos, or also Facebook. Like I'm on most channels. I'm not on Twitter. Like I have a Twitter account, but I'm not checking it out too much.
Same here.
Maybe I'm changing that because like I hear so much bad things about Twitter. It's like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to
Twitter's a pool of venom. Everyone is angry on Twitter.
A little bit, yeah. On the other hand, it's also cool, like how direct you get into contact with people sometimes.
Yeah, that's
like,
true too.
I think I literally made a Twitter account to make a piece of fan art for a YouTuber that I really like, Stephen Plays, who makes like Let's Plays, and I drew him a little piece of art for his channel. And he was like, it was just cool. It was like, oh my god, that's so cool, piece of art, you know. Awesome. That's what I made a Twitter account for, and I didn't look at it for a year after this. So yeah, let's see. Funny. I'm okay with checking it out, but yeah, that's how you find me, and yeah, just cool. always happy to see you. If you have a question, just like drop it in some YouTube video comment, or like shoot me a message on Facebook. So I usually try to respond, and if I can, and if you want me to make a video about something, or if you're interested about something in my process, and like just drop it also in the comments. I'm looking for things that I can make a video about, and if you guys say, oh, this is interesting in the process, just like ask.
Cool.
You can always.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Oh, and also, if you're watching this on YouTube, we don't see it, but you on YouTube do. His last name, or his Instagram handle, is at the bottom of the page, the bottom of the screen, so you'll see it there. So yeah, go ahead and make sure that you're following him, and also make sure that you're following Jack. Hey Jack, if people are looking for you, where can they find you?
Mainly Sketchbook Jack on Instagram and .com.
Boom, there you go. And I'm Coconut Justice, so Tobi, if you see Coconut Justice harassing you, that's me.
All right. Yeah, I love the handle. That was very good.
Thank you. So yeah, coconutjustice.com, Coconut Justice everywhere else. Sketch Zone, we're here. We try to be here every week. It doesn't always work out, but we try to be here every week. This was episode 196. So if you want to see all the other episodes,
coming up on 200, eh?
Yeah.
Close, yeah.
That's pretty.
Yeah, you can find all the episodes at sketch.zone. And then, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we had a live studio audience with us. So thank you to Landon and Ali and Longarm, and who else was there? I'm scrolling through real fast. I'm sure I'm going to miss a couple people.
Yeah,
and if
thanks
I did,
you guys.
I apologize.
Thanks you guys for tuning in and watching. I hope it was entertaining and interesting.
Oh yeah, they loved it. They already said it in the chat.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so if you can catch us live, we appreciate it because you guys become part of the show. If not, you can find us obviously at sketch.zone, and from there you'll see all of our links to all of the social medias. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. No, that's me.
Pinterest.
Yeah, and then we're also on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, iTunes, and Spotify. So with that, my friends, thanks again, Toby, for talking to us about everything. It was wonderful.
Thank
it was
you.
literally everything I wanted it to be.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks you guys for having me. It was my first time on any podcast, which is like I said earlier, like I cannot work without the podcast in the background at this point, but it's only so many times you can listen to my brother and me, the complete works of the McElroys. I was like, yeah, I know all the goofs now.
That's hilarious.
All right. Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Hang on, don't hang up yet. All right, everyone, have a good week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.